Bateman's national picture of Reconstruction is a lithograph by J.L. Giles and a response to the first Reconstruction Act in March 1867. The Library of Congress describes the piece as a grand allegory of the reconciliation of North and South through the federal program of Reconstruction. In Giles' piece, the United States is a building that is literally being reconstructed. His piece is idealistic and hopeful, filled with Christian imagery and a portrayal of a noble North. This piece also shows acceptance of the South and former Confederates, portraying white leaders from both northern and southern states, while leaving, with the exception of Frederick Douglass, any black leaders out of the image of Reconstruction. The piece is grand in scale, covering decades of history in great detail through one image. At times it shows signs of acceptance and tolerance that had yet to come at the time in which the piece was created. However, it remains an idealized image of a smooth Reconstruction that looks through the narrow prism of white Northerners. The building's dome, with a map of the United States and a bald eagle clutching an American flag on top, represents the government. All three branches of government are portrayed in images of the Senate, the House, the President's Cabinet, and the Supreme Court. The federal government is supported by the state governments, represented by straight pillars, as it was under the Articles of Confederation. The people, who are represented by curved pillars, were then added. The Constitution placed the straight pillars of the state government on the same foundation as the curved pillars of the people. Giles romanticizes the North through the foundations of the building. In his opinion, the Free States' foundations, since before the Civil War, were justice, liberty, and education. Images of justice with her scales, liberty with her cap on the right, and a school in the background are etched onto the bases of these columns. Giles believed slave states had been founded upon slavery and liberty. Here you see a slave on his knees next to liberty. The image itself is a paradox, showing liberty almost as the master of a slave. This seems to show that Giles' definition of liberty means liberty for the states, not necessarily for individuals, specifically enslaved individuals. Ironically, taking away slavery would have infringed upon southern states' liberties, their liberty to continue the institution of slavery. Here Giles presents his narrative of secession. The South did not want education and justice to become part of their foundations, so they tried to take the people, the curved columns, but the United States government prevented this. The Southern leaders could only take their states, the straight pillars. They formed the Confederacy, and its foundation was slavery, and slavery alone. Giles says that the United States gave the South repeated chances to return to their original foundations of slavery and liberty. This refers to Lincoln's announcement in September of 1862 that all slaves would be freed in any state that did not return to the Union by January 1863, meaning if a state returned before then, it could keep its slaves. On January 1st, 1863, Lincoln officially issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in the Confederate States. Giles says that the Emancipation Proclamation destroyed the institution of slavery, although it was obviously not that simple. Reconstruction began in this portrayal with the first Reconstruction Act in March 1867. Each Confederate state had to hold a new constitutional convention and write a new constitution based on universal male suffrage. Ex-Confederate states had to ratify the 14th Amendment to be readmitted. Until that point, the Confederate states were under military rule, as represented by the soldiers that surrounded the former Confederate pillars. Beyond this basic narrative of Reconstruction, Giles fills his piece with symbolism representing his various, often Christian ideals and his hopes for the future. Across the top is justice, blind with her scales. Liberty, again with her cap. And a symbol of peace, clearly a Christian symbol, as an image of Jesus with the golden rule above him. There are also several images of places important to the history of African Americans, and America in general. There is the Freedmen's Bureau. Faneuil Hall in Boston, Massachusetts, a headquarters of sorts for abolitionists, described by Giles as the Cradle of Liberty. Above it is Bunker Hill. To the left is a site of the Constitutional Convention, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The left side of the image is a decimated South that is now dependent on the North. On the border is the Washington Monument and the Capitol Building. Giles shows hope for the future. Above an idealistic view of black men and white men peacefully voting together are faded images of women voting. Something that Giles seems to hope will one day happen in his lifetime. On the right is a school filled with children, both black and white, both boys and girls, playing together. There is a less idealistic but still hopeful view of civil rights, represented by two houses. The left house has a white couple being married, and the right side has a black couple being married. These homes are separate but equal. They possess similar-sized buildings, identical fences, and similar carriages. Since this is an idealistic image, yet blacks and whites are separated, Giles might be against or possibly not even conceive of miscegenation. But on the other hand, he may also be showing that black couples should experience the same privileges in marriage as white couples. Finally, there are the spirits of a black man and a white man that are now similar and going toward heaven, filled with great people from the past. In this heaven, great men from both the South and the North are pictured. However, there are no black people. Interestingly, there are several Native Americans in this image. And most interestingly, Joan of Arc, a French woman from centuries before, is amongst the people in the clouds. On the bottom are the living leaders. Confederates such as Jefferson Davis are shown shaking hands with Unionists like Ulysses S. Grant. The only discernible black person in this image is Frederick Douglass. The great people in the back are listed as indiscernible people that will become clear in the future. Maybe these people might one day include African Americans in Giles' mind. Giles' image is impressive in scale, but possibly what is most impressive is how hopeful he seems. Hopeful for a future post-Reconstruction. A world with liberty and justice for all.
Freude! 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 Schöne Kette funkeln Tochter aus Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken himmlische dein Heiligtum. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode stringen. Alle Menschen der den Brüder, du ein sanfter Flügel.